Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Natalia Moczulska and this is the news. Conscription, mobilization, and even impressment. These have been the most popular words in Poland in recent hours, all due to, as it turns out, routine military exercises to which, as every year, men of draft age are summoned. However, according to Onet Portal, which has unleashed a storm around this topic, Poles have a negative attitude to the training proposed by the army. The article also includes hints on how to change the military category. Many Poles are wondering if it is possible to avoid military exercises, what the different military categories require, and if there is a way to change such a category. Experts remind that Poland, in the current geopolitical situation, is in exceptional danger, so the country should be ready for the threat. Certain portals which operate on the basis of German capital do everything to make the Polish state and defense weak, to not defend Europe, to not defend Poland. The head of the Central Military Recruiting Center, Colonel Mirosław Bryś, addressed the media confusion over the exercises. Such individuals are to be invited to military recruitment centers where they will be presented with a proposal for reserve exercises. The exercises are to last 2 days and will be conducted on weekends. During the exercises, recruits will become familiar with military equipment and will be assigned to a specific military unit. For us, it is very incomprehensible why there is suddenly such a media hype around an issue that is not really any news and does not deviate from the plan regarding the exercise of reserve soldiers, which was implemented last year. As you know, Poland at the moment lies next to countries that are fighting one another because we're next to Ukraine and Russia. This is our eastern border, the frontier, and it's no wonder that this training will be more intense at the moment than they used to be. According to columnist Marek Król, Onet is dependent on its German owner. The capital has a nationality, contrary to what Leszek Balcerowicz promoted, and Onet is owned by a company, a German publisher, so it is difficult not to combine these facts. Editor-in-chief Tomasz Sakiewicz points out that the German portal is running campaigns to demobilize the Polish army. The question is why a portal with capital from an allied country behaves like an enemy in war, and this question should be answered by the editors and owners, because the situation is extremely serious. According to columnist Rafał Ziemkiewicz, the Polish army has been neglected for years, and today the wartime threat is real, so training is worthwhile. The idea is more so psychological and more political, so that it gets across to people in general that, hey, listen, there's been a war going on there for over 300 days. It's really a stone's throw from Poland. This war can come to Poland at any time. It can come from Belarus. It can come from somewhere else, too. The exercises are designed for those in the passive reserve, that is, anyone who has passed military qualification and has been assigned a military category. Men up to the age of 55 are included in the training. Real conscription is, however, underway in Russia, which is struggling with a shortage of soldiers. This time, it will be expanded to include 17-year-olds living in occupied territories in Ukraine. Meanwhile, the United States has announced another package of support for Kyiv and the imposition of new sanctions on the Kremlin. Russian troops are gradually retreating month by month under the onslaught of the Ukrainian counteroffensive. Sappers are clearing the liberated Mykolaiv region of Russian explosives. Ammunition that can be reused for frontline combat is being transferred to the armed forces of Ukraine and the National Guard. Some of the ammunition is unsafe. We constantly evacuate it or detonate it on the spot. The ammunition that is suitable is transferred to the equipment of our units to use against the enemy. As we say, lend-leasing, or Russian loan, from Russia to our lands, from here to the front, and our boys return the weapons to the Russians. After recapturing Kherson, Ukrainians are preparing for their next challenge, the coming winter. For weeks, the Russians have been shelling Ukraine's energy infrastructure to force more migrations of civilians. Today, we received a new stove. The previous one was no longer usable. It is good that my husband brought it. Now we will be able to burn wood. We could cook something on it, but there are problems with the supply. It would also be possible to heat water for washing, but there is no water. This year's winter will be especially dangerous for seniors. Among the elderly, there are some lonely people who were unable to evacuate on their own from the areas most affected by the war. I have no idea what to do, where to start. You see with your own eyes everything is destroyed. I don't know how the land can be developed without equipment. I don't know. Ukrainian society is gearing up for a very hard winter, as attacks on critical infrastructure result in deprivation of electricity, heat from thermal power plants. Ukrainians are coping as best as they can and installing replacement heating. They are using generators. This is becoming more common here. The authorities in Kiev are aware that without support from the West, the coming winter will be particularly severe. Germany has so far delivered 150 power generators to Ukraine, and another 320 units are being prepared for transport. According to Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Germany is one of the countries most effectively supporting Ukraine. There is no guarantee that Russia will not attack other countries. We see the scale of the brutality of this war steadily advancing. For now, one thing has changed. Russia has stopped threatening to use nuclear weapons in response to the fact that the international community has drawn a red line. However, according to experts, Berlin's decisions are mainly for image purposes. The situation is such that the key thing at the moment is support in this ongoing war from all countries, including Germany. And this support looks very different because, for example, Germany is delivering Leopard tanks, but the last batch was delivered with one set of ammunition. So you can say that it is more for the show than real support. The United States, on the other hand, is preparing another military aid package for Ukraine, this time in the amount of $275 million. Support for Kiev and Polish-American cooperation in the face of the Russian invasion of Ukraine will be the topics discussed between the head of Polish diplomacy, Zbigniew Rau, and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Washington. South Korean K-2 tanks, which arrived in Poland on Tuesday, were handed over to soldiers of the 20th Bartoszycka Mechanized Brigade in Morong today. Under the contract with Seoul, 180 tanks of this type will be received by 2026. Whoever tries to save money on the army will pay a big bill. All of Russia's neighbors are aware of the threat posed by the neighbor. Therefore, in recent times, and especially in the last few years, we have made a huge effort to strengthen, modernize the Polish army. You can say it like this: either you have something to defend yourself with, and you don't have to defend yourself, or you don't have anything to defend yourself with, and then you have to defend yourself. We want to have such a strong army, such a well-modernized army and modern equipment, so that no one would think of attacking Poland.
Silną armię, tak dobrze zmodernizowaną armię i nowoczesny sprzęt, aby nikomu nie przyszło do głowy, żeby Polskę zaatakować.
Wzmacniamy wojsko polskie, dlatego że
We are strengthening the Polish army because our priority is the security of our homeland. We are consistent in this action. I am very pleased that in such a short period of time, we have achieved success in that military equipment of the highest quality has already arrived in Poland, is on Polish soil, and is in the hands of Polish soldiers.
Jest w ręku polskich żołnierzy.
And finally, U.S. basketball player Brittany Griner, who is serving a 9-year prison sentence in Russia for possession of hashish oil, has returned to the country. Yesterday, she was exchanged for Russian arms dealer Viktor But, who has been in a U.S. prison for years.
President Biden keeps his promises, and today he fulfilled a deeply important promise to bring Brittany Griner home to a family that loves her, a team that misses her, and a country that has marveled at her strength and courage.
A two-time Olympic champion has been sentenced to 9 years in prison after she was detained at a Moscow airport in February for possessing e-cigarette cartridges containing hashish oil. The issue of the arrest and conviction of the American woman against the backdrop of the war in Ukraine and the growing confrontation between Russia and the U.S. has moved to the political arena. Efforts to secure the release of the basketball player, who the State Department deemed wrongly convicted, have been going on at the highest level. In contrast, Russian Viktor But, who was freed by the U.S., one of the world's biggest arms dealers, was arrested in a Bangkok hotel in 2008. In 2012, he was sentenced to 25 years in prison in the U.S. The exchange failed to free a second U.S. citizen wrongly held in a Russian prison, Paul Whelan. He was detained in Moscow in 2018 on charges of spying. Whelan was sentenced to 16 years in prison. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Please stay tuned for Poland Daily Weather, Poland Daily Business, and some of our other programs. But for me, it's have a wonderful weekend.